This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch for this Friday, November 22nd. I'm Mark Martin. Pro-democracy advocates are praising legislation passed by Congress that lends strong support for freedom in Hong Kong. But China is pledging to enact tough countermeasures against the United States if the president signs the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. The act requires tough sanctions against government officials responsible for violating human rights and committing acts of violence against protesters in Hong Kong. It's unclear how presidential approval of the bill may affect U.S.-China trade negotiations, but Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi suggests the U.S. action is long overdue.
If America does not speak up for human rights in China because of commercial issues, we lose all moral authority to speak about human rights anywhere in the world.
CBN News senior international correspondent Gary Lane joins us now with more on the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. Thank you, Gary, for joining us.
Glad to be here, Mark.
Appreciate it. So why did Congress approve the legislation at this time?
Well, you saw the violence this week. I mean, even earlier this week, there was one protester that was shot point blank in the chest. So it's escalating in Hong Kong. I think they want to show support for pro-democracy movement leaders there and the whole movement in Hong Kong at this time. That's the best way to do it.
What does it do specifically besides sending a message to China?
Well, tough economic sanctions on individuals found to be guilty of violating human rights and committing acts of violence. And that would mean things like freezing their assets in American bank accounts, also denying them visas and so forth, but also potentially tougher countermeasures as well.
How likely is the president to sign the bill, would you say?
Well, it isn't known at this time. The White House is sending out mixed signals. I think all of this has to do with the whole China trade and the negotiations that are underway right now. Mark, as you know, the president on December 15th has threatened to impose additional tariffs on China. So he's trying to use everything possible in these trade talks. And so we don't know how this will affect the trade negotiations or if the president will sign it. Maybe he wants to use this as a bargaining chip to get China to finally reach an agreement. That phase one deal is still up in the air. China wants it, the president wants it, but everything kind of is in flux right now. So we'll see if he's going to sign this or use it as a bargaining chip.
Okay, thanks for following that story. We appreciate it, Gary.
Sure,
Once
Mark.
again, our senior international correspondent, Gary Lane. In other news, the House Intelligence Committee wrapped up its live televised testimony in the impeachment inquiry against President Donald Trump Thursday. Fiona Hill, a former national security official, recounted a meeting between Ukrainian officials and EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland. She testified Sondland told her he laid out conditions for a White House meeting after getting directives from Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney.
Ambassador Sondland leaned in basically to say, well, we have an agreement that there will be a meeting if specific investigations are put underway.
Hill said that when National Security Advisor John Bolton learned of that meeting, he ordered her to report it to White House counsel and to tell the counsel that he had nothing to do with, quote, whatever drug deal Mulvaney and Sondland are cooking up. Hill was the final witness. Now the Intelligence Committee will submit a report to the Judiciary Committee to decide whether to draw up articles of impeachment. President Trump signed a short-term funding bill to prevent a government shutdown. It's good through December 20th. It gives leaders 4 more weeks to try to agree on a government budget. The biggest delay on the funding bill is an impasse over President Trump's request for more than $8 million to fund a U.S.-Mexico border wall. Evangelist Franklin Graham says Chick-fil-A CEO Dan Cathy assured him the fast food chain is not caving to pressure from LGBTQ groups. News that Chick-fil-A is ending donations to the Salvation Army and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes sparked outrage among many Christians and conservatives. Those organizations require their members to adhere to biblical marriage. Chick-fil-A has been under extreme pressure from the LGBTQ community since Cathy publicly spoke out against gay marriage 7 years ago. In a Facebook post, Graham says he called Cathy, who told him Chick-fil-A remains committed to Christian values and is not bowing down to demands from the LGBTQ community. A school district in Illinois is allowing transgender students unrestricted access to student locker rooms. The school board approved the new policy just days ago, despite protests by parents and students. The decision means transgender students don't have to use privacy stalls in school locker rooms. The transgender student who sued the district told a local newspaper she's ecstatic about the vote, while a student who's a swimmer said she's worried.
It's definitely a first step forward in many more steps. It's a great policy. Unfortunately, it's not everything we want, such as talking about even the small things like changing the name on your student ID.
I feel uncomfortable that my privacy is being invaded. As I am a swimmer, I do change multiple times naked in front of the other students in the locker room. And I understand that the board has an obligation to all students, but I was hoping that they would go about this in a different way that would also accommodate students such as myself.
The district is emphasizing that students have to be aligned with the gender on their school record to use the locker rooms. Parents say this new policy opens the door for harassment and humiliation. A bill protecting babies diagnosed in the womb with Down syndrome from abortion was vetoed by Pennsylvania's governor. The state's Democratic Governor Tom Wolf had said he'd reject the bill if it did make it to his desk. Pennsylvania state law allows for abortions up to 24 weeks of pregnancy for any reason, except in cases where it is used for gender selection. This bill would have added Down syndrome. Republicans who control the state Senate said it would have protected a vulnerable population whose lives are productive. Coming up, what's ahead for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's facing indictments, and for his country's political future.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Welcome back. For the first time in Israel's history, a sitting prime minister has been indicted. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the announcement puts the political future of Israel's longest-serving prime minister in doubt and Israel's political landscape in even more turmoil.
Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit announced indictments against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in 3 separate cases for fraud, bribery, and breach of trust. He called it a sad day for Israel.
A day in which the Attorney General decides to serve an indictment against a seated Prime Minister for serious crimes of corrupt governance is a heavy and sad day for the Israeli public and for me personally.
An emotional and defiant Netanyahu defended himself.
Tonight, we're witnessing an attempted coup against the Prime Minister, using false accusations and a tainted and biased investigation process.
Netanyahu called for a separate commission to investigate the charges and said the investigators were not hunting for the truth, but hunting him. He vowed to remain in office.
I won't let the lie win. I will continue to lead the country according to the law, exactly as written. I will continue to lead the country with responsibility, with dedication, and with care for the security and the future of all of us, and for our country, and for democracy, and for the rule of law, and for justice. We need to do one thing. We need at last to investigate the investigators.
After the announcement, some Israelis from the right and the left took to the streets.
All the attorney and the justice system, they belong to the left. But the left, they anti-democracy. They see that after election after election, they lose, Bibi win the election. So what they make? They make investigation.
I'm here because today the Prime Minister of Israel has been indicted for bribery and breach of trust, and he must resign his office today, tonight.
After years of investigations, Netanyahu will have his day in court. Despite the indictments, Netanyahu remains Prime Minister until the results of his trial, which could take months or even years. If he is convicted, he would have to step down. It comes at a critical time politically for Israel. Both Benny Gantz, the leader of the Blue and White Party, and Netanyahu have been unable to form a government. Now, for the first time in Israel's history, the members of the Knesset will have 21 days to choose a prime minister. If they can't, Israelis will go to the polls in several months. Whatever happens, Israel is facing one of its most uncertain times politically in its history.
And our Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now with more. Welcome, Chris. Were these indictments a surprise?
Welcome, Mark. Well, you know, I don't think there was so much a surprise as a shock to many people, and that's what one person told me last night. I think a lot of people had expecting this, anticipated this for months, if not years, but it really is a shock to the Israeli system. And as we said in the story, right now, Israel is in uncharted waters, both legally and politically. For the first time, a sitting prime minister is under indictment. For the first time, the Knesset has 21 days to form a government. And then if that doesn't happen, they'll be going to new elections. So this is unprecedented in Israel's history on both the legal issues and the political side.
Chris, what is the public response? I mean, are people standing with their longtime prime minister?
Well, you saw in the story two reactions from both the left and the right. In fact, that demonstration was just a few blocks away from here in the Bureau, just outside the Prime Minister's residence. And I think that reflects what's happening in Israeli society. Really, there's a division about whether you're pro or anti-Netanyahu. In fact, the last two elections, some people have said were really a referendum on Netanyahu himself. And many of the political parties were sort of like anybody but Bibi Netanyahu. So you have a division within Israel. And actually, Mark, it sort of reflects what's happening in the United States. There's really a divisiveness about President Trump, who's going through his own political challenges with the impeachment hearings. And Netanyahu is going through his challenges right now with these indictments. And both President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu are saying it's really a coup against them by people in the both in the judiciary and in the investigative services.
How will what's going on politically affect Israel's security and what's going on in the overall region?
Well, it's a good question, Mark, because just a few days ago, Iran fired 4 missiles to the Golan Heights, and Israel had a firm response. And the message was to Iran, we may be unstable politically, but we're going to take care of any threats that face our borders wherever they are. And right, Mark, we're also seeing unprecedented instability in the region, in Iran, in Iraq, and Lebanon. So really, you could have anything from the Iranian government falling to perhaps a regional war. It's a very unstable time here here in the Middle East.
Well, thank you for all your information. But before you go, what's coming up on Jerusalem Dateline this week?
Well, we have John Waggy here with us and Julie Stahl. We have a roundtable talking about what's happening. We're going to talk about another historic first. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo really changed U.S. policy and sort of endorsed the legality of Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. We'll have something with Chuck Holton about Northeast Syria, and we'll also have Gordon Robertson talking about why it's important to stand with the state of Israel. We think it's going to be informative and even inspiring.
Very true. All right, Chris, our Middle East Bureau Chief, blessings to you, sir. And you can see more news from the Middle East with Chris and his team tonight on the CBN News Channel at 9:30 Eastern. Still ahead, we're talking the Colts and Texans game last night, plus much more with CBN sports reporter Sean Brown.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Thanks for watching CBN NewsWatch. CBN's Sean Brown is here to do what he does best, talk sports. Good to see you, Sean.
Hey, good to see you, Mark. What's going on, man?
All right, well, let's talk first about the game last night between the Colts and Texans.
Yeah, here you have a AFC South showdown. Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts. The Texans lost earlier in the season to the Colts. And they're basically trying to get that #1 spot, man. We're heading into the postseason. And at this late in the game, man, teams you got to give your best, man. And it was a great game last night. Both teams played pretty well. The Colts just ended up falling a little bit short. But they're not out, you know. Again, you've got 2 great quarterbacks in Jacoby Brissett. Deshaun Watson played extremely well. Of course, you know, Brissett, we didn't expect, you know, him to play as well because they lost a quarterback earlier in the season with Andrew Luck when he decided to retire. So now he's thrust into the lead role, and he showed up pretty big, man. So just a great season for both of these guys. And right now it's going to come down to who wants it more. Minimizing the mistakes, and my prediction is I think the Houston Texans are going to win the division. That's what I think.
All right,
yeah,
there you have it.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, first of all, I actually want to talk about other NFL news. What's going on with Colin Kaepernick? I guess understanding more controversy there.
Yeah, I mean a little bit. I mean, for years we've been wondering, hey, why doesn't he have a job? Why isn't he employed? In my opinion, and a lot of other opinions, Colin can play quarterback better than a lot of quarterbacks that are in there right now, but he didn't have a job. And so here we are, the NFL offers him an opportunity to work out before 25 teams in Atlanta this past Saturday, and he didn't like the contract. For whatever reason, they did not allow media to be in the facility. They said they would control everything. They would send the tape out 25 teams. Now, my thing is, if you have two sides, you've got Colin Kaepernick, the NFL, and one of them they don't trust each other. Okay, if one side says, hey, you know, you can come in and work out for us, but we're not going to let anybody see it, that's a little weird. And so Colin didn't like that, so he decided to move the actual workout an hour outside of Atlanta to a high school and work out. And he sent a memo out maybe an hour before. Only 8 teams showed up. And so we've been discussing it all week. He doesn't want to play football. What's going on with the NFL? My thing is, if the NFL really wanted to offer him an opportunity, why not say, hey, we have an open door policy here. You come in, you work out. We're going to let everybody see it. If you can really play, you should have a job. I just don't understand. So he went out and showed everybody that he still has it in the tank. So in these next weeks, we'll have to see how it pans out. I think he has another workout. He's working on another workout coming this spring. So we'll have to see how it pans out. It's a lot of speculation going around. I mean, time will tell what's really going on. But clearly he can play ball. So we'll have to see how that develops.
Well, unfortunate news for Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, major injury. Talk about how it may impact Alabama and the rest of the season, but I know he's still standing strong with his faith.
Still standing strong. He's been tweeting it out, man. His faith is in the forefront, man. His parents sent out a nice tweet to the fans for praying and just lifting him up. But Alabama's Alabama, man. Mac Jones, who's going to come in and fill in that role, is in the same position in a way that Tua was when he got the starting job, And so, Nick Saban believes that he's ready. I mean, he's a game manager. These guys, they were offered scholarships for a reason, so they can play ball. The good news is that Tua should receive a full recovery. I think the surgery went well. They're very optimistic about his return to football. The question remains, is he going to stay in college or is he going to move up to the next level, the NFL? So we'll have to wait and see. But I think Alabama's going to move. Right now, the college teams are looking still LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, and then Alabama's still at number 5. But I think Alabama's football program is going to be fine, man. It's Nick Saban, it's Alabama, so we'll wait and see.
All right, well, quickly, what's coming up on Going the Distance this weekend?
Shamarko Thomas, great story, lost both of his parents while at Syracuse, and he's used that as fuel. He gave his life to Christ after that, and that's just been motivation for him for success. He's taken care of his entire family, and just as he navigates through the NFL. So just a powerful story of turning loss around and using that for fuel for success rooted in Christ.
That is awesome. I know those athletes, they have such a powerful witness. They really do. What a wonderful platform. Yeah. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Yeah, you bet. You can catch Going the Distance with Sean Brown. It is this weekend on the CBN News Channel, Saturday at 6:30 and Sunday at 7:30, both Eastern times. Coming up, a new video streaming alternative for your children that is all about being faith-friendly.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
There's a new video streaming service geared to children that is faith-based. The creators of Minnow say it counters some of the messages on some of the more popular video apps and services for kids. Minnow's founder Eric Goss spoke with our George Thomas to tell us why he thinks it's needed.
So you say Minnow is needed to counter services like Disney Plus, Amazon, and Netflix. I thought, are these not family-friendly outlets?
Well, I think they're family-friendly. I think the key question is family-friendly to who? So when we talk to our customers and we talk to Christian parents, they're really struggling with sort of three major questions. The first is, how do I help my children grow up to know Jesus, and how can they grow in their faith? The second is, how can I protect them from a lot of the messages of mainstream culture, because so much of mainstream media is formed by mainstream culture that doesn't have a Christian worldview. And then the third is, how can I parent my children more effectively? And just what can we do to actually have a better family life in our efforts to follow Christ? And so when you look at the major platforms like Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Apple, none of these platforms really have Christian families and Christian kids in mind. And in most instances, you know, you're talking about platforms that are really just more entertainment-based. And while they have a worldview and have a point of view about life, they're not necessarily being explicit with that. And so we really wanted to provide an alternative for Christian parents where they could be safe and recognize that when their kids are on, they're seeing shows that reflect their values, and they don't have to be hyper-vigilant.
Let's dig deeper on this very point. What is your goal for this service, especially when it comes to helping parents and kids navigate the media culture that you just talked about and the one that we have to live in today and navigate?
Yeah, well, I think most importantly, when we think about Minnow, and Minnow's name is actually rooted in John 15, where Jesus says, if you abide in me and I'll abide in you. And the idea here is, what can we do to really provide a platform that allows Christian families to abide in Christ and to experience Jesus every day? We really believe that God should be a part of our lives in sort of every aspect. And so a lot of how we look at our lives is informed by the stories that we watch or that we hear. And so what we really want to do is provide stories that can facilitate great conversations between parents and kids about faith and what it means to be a Christian. And so mainstream media at this point really doesn't have that as objective and doesn't really care about it. And there's really no place for Christian parents to go today to be able to find that type of help and that type of support. And so we really want to provide a platform where Christian kids can watch and not have to worry about what they're watching, and that parents can have shows that they can have conversations with their kids that help them, you know, raise the next generation of Christians.
Eric, tell us about some of the programming. I know here at CBN News we have favorites. That's Gizmo Chris and Joy from Superbook. Do you have all the latest Superbook episodes?
So we have Superbook, we have Veggie Tales. We actually have the largest selection of Veggie Tales. So a lot of folks, actually today, you can't even find classic Veggie Tales on the major platforms, but you can find them at Minnow. We also have shows like Friends and Heroes, Allegories, Ryan DeFreitas, Buck Denver Ask What's in the Bible. And so all the top Christian children's programs you can find on Minnow today.
Okay, terrific. One last question. Where can parents learn more?
So they can learn more about Minnow at gominnow.com. So that's our website. And then you can also look for the Minnow app on the app platform of your choice.
Terrific. That is gominnow.com. Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show, and congratulations on this new venture.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you having us.
You're most welcome.
Thanks for watching. Have a great day.